Every Friday, we've been doing a series of interviews with World War II veterans, and today we're going to be doing an additional interview with someone I've spoken to in the past as part of our ongoing series of War Files. Our guest, Professor Earl Norwood, professor of history, military history, and former educator and teacher at Carter Community College, is one of his last stops. But he's joining us today as we prepare for that fateful day of December 7th. And as a matter of fact, he's going to be engaged in a program at the History Center in Morehead City this coming week. And so we thought it would be appropriate to get him in the studio with us one more time to just chat about what he's going to be talking about and some of his experiences as well. And with that, our guest, Earl Norwood. Thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Pleasure to be here.
You know, it is something, we've talked about that, and your story was very poignant, and we'll probably touch on that, your experience when you were on the Higgins boat on D-Day. That's correct. As a matter of fact, I gather that'll probably be part of the discussion this coming...
Yes, it will be. Mm-hmm.
Now, the date of the event is 6:30, and it's December 6th.
That's correct. At
the History Place there on Arundel Street in Morehead City.
That's correct.
Earl, tell us what's your intent of this program on
when I went over to France in September 2008 on a whim. I had read in the AARP magazine that they were going to dedicate a monument to the sailors who had been killed in the Normandy Invasion. And I was a sailor in the Normandy Invasion, and I had never given it a thought. So I jumped the Delta and flew over, and to my surprise, here's this beautiful monument that was that the Navy League put together and had installed on Utah Beach. And they had the dedication on the 27th of September, 2008, and I was there. I was just, on a whim, I went. And when I was there, I met Richard Long, who is producing a series of film on World War II, Americans in World War II in Europe, and a trilogy of 6 films. And one of them centers on the invasion of Normandy. So he interviewed me in Mr. Van Stubel's chateau in Bayeux, and in the kitchen, by the way. That's where it was most comfortable.
All right, now, Mr. Van Stubel, tell me who
he's a guide, has a guide company there.
Okay, all right.
I don't know how he picked up that name, but he's English, working in France, and his name is Van Stubel. But I never questioned it. I figured he has a fabulous home there, and he loaned it to us for this film.
This event took place in September 2009.
That's correct. He interviewed me and photographed me, quite a long interview on my participation in the Normandy Invasion, and we're gradually disappearing. We're disappearing fast.
Yeah.
So he is working very diligently to get as many World War II veterans that participate in the various battles of Europe, the Battle of the Bulge, the Rhine, and he goes out and does documentaries on these. It's you can tell he's not out to make a bundle of money, because you don't make it on documentaries.
Right.
But he has his cause, and he's following up with it. He and his wife Hilda, pardon me. And so I was very pleased that he interviewed me. And I am in part of this film. After the film is shown, I'll give a small talk on about our Higgins boats and the preparations we made, and some of the fantastic things we saw. And
well, you tell an interesting story about your experience in that, and we're going to relive that here a little later on. Because I think it, as a matter of fact, last evening as I was engaged in the Wounded Warriors project, the Leave project at the New Bern Country Club. I had several veterans approach me and mention the series that we've been doing here on the Talk Station, our Friday afternoon interviews, and I really appreciate the fact that it's resonating with folks. But your name came up, and I'm the one who brought it up, but intentionally I said some of the fascinating stories, and I want you to tell that story there on as you were making that first landing, as I recall. And just to remind folks, our guest Earl Norwood will be the guest of honor, making a presentation and presenter of a special program, 6:30. This is December 6th, and that is, just to make sure everybody's aware of, that's Tuesday, the day before Pearl Harbor Day, of course, 6:30 p.m. at the History Place on Arundel Street in Morehead City. Earl, in your conversations, of course, you're going to be chatting about the experiences of the Higgins boat. Since you brought it up, I just want to make mention of this. Of course, the North Carolina Maritime Museum in Beaufort was engaged in the refurbishment of a Higgins boat.
Yes, I was there the day they dedicated it.
When that came in. So, I mean, a lot of people are not aware of these Higgins boats, and we've talked to World War II veterans who served aboard Liberty ships, and they were putting out massive 200-foot steel ships at one every 5 days thereabouts. We were a country that was really not industrially prepared for going to war. You saw that firsthand because you got to ride aboard one of those Higgins boats. Let's talk about what made a Higgins boat.
What made a Higgins boat was Mr. Higgins, a man it was named after. Let's go back to the origin of it.
Okay.
In 1939, a group of Marines were on Yangtze River, and when the Japanese invaded China, and they came ashore in landing barges, and this one Marine officer took pictures and drew diagrams and brought them back to Quantico, and nobody paid any attention to him. We stole the design from the Japanese, which we later used it to defeat them, because the Higgins boat was extremely instrumental in the Pacific to get the people to shore. And he finally convinced Mr. Higgins, who had the small boat operations in New Orleans.
New Orleans, right.
And was working with the oil rigs and et cetera. And he showed him the designs and so forth. And they improved on it, put the ramp on it, and et cetera, and designed the Higgins boat. It was 36 feet long, 12 feet wide. It had a small keel that began about halfway back and went back to protect the screw and the rudder. It was made of 3/4-inch plywood. It had a little bit.
3/4-inch plywood.
Right, exactly.
Now we're talking a transportation system in a world of war, in a war environment, where pieces of metal are exploding nearby, bullets are flying,
right,
and you're protected by a 3/4-inch piece of plywood.
That's correct. The Camel cigarette.
Pardon me. Do you at times think back on that and kind of wonder why you're still here?
I do. I mean, it just, when I look at the equipment that they're using today, the military, and thank God they have it, I don't begrudge them of it at all. But when I think that I went ashore in the third wave at Normandy in a piece of plywood, where the only defense I had was a K-Pack life jacket and a steel pot.
Are you sure you're not a ghost that's just visiting? But it is amazing.
It is amazing. The one thing that they overlooked, we had a small piece of steel that went from the forward spar back to the spar in front of the coxswain, but it didn't do any good at all. It was about 1/8 of an inch thick. I don't know why I think they put it on there for balance. I don't know. But anyhow, that was my theory, because it never did any good. For instance, my boat, just as we dropped the ramp, an artillery round came into the boat, came into the starboard side, exploded, and instantly killed 3 men. It just blew them to pieces. And the fourth man, it just opened him all up. And here's this gaping hole. And we had to get those men back to the ships. We couldn't lose them. Mm-hmm. And my crew and I, labor, we used our helmets to bail. We cleaned out the bilge pump every time we turned around. I won't go into detail of what was in the bilge pump. But somehow, miraculously, that LCVP got us back to our ship.
Now, did you were trying to get the wounded back, or were you trying to get all of the men back?
All of them. Just the wounded.
Just the wounded.
Because the marvel, the other thing in this, when the round hit, these 4 men were lined up across, got all 4 of them. They dropped to the deck. 3 of them are dead before they hit the deck. You could tell they were blown open. And the other 32 men on that boat stepped over them, down the ramp and into machine gun fire, mortar round fire, pure hell, and they never hesitated. It's unbelievable.
The courage or the commitment.
The courage, the valor. I have.
Last evening, and I'm going to bring that to a local moment. Last evening, I had the honor of interviewing two warriors. A first sergeant, Marine Corps first sergeant, Donauer, and a lance corporal, and the both. And I'm desperate to remember his name, and I apologize for not remembering it. But both the lance corporal and the first sergeant, we were talking about the camaraderie that they have experienced, and both of them wounded in theater, and now stationed with Camp Lejeune at the Wounded Warriors Barracks. But the camaraderie, but also the commitment. And I was thinking about it following that interview, that what's unique and sad about warfare, in the most base moment of humankind, when the intent is to kill and destroy. It's, enemy versus enemy. That in that moment, you also paradoxically see the greatest of mankind's capacity towards valor, principle, and sacrifice.
That's so true. That is so true. And it's you're scared. I don't ever, anybody ever tells you when to combat and you get scared, just walk on off. But it seems like they got all kinds of scientific reasons for it and so forth. Mm-hmm. But you're a basic human being. That's my feeling. And I've researched a lot of this and read a lot of it. What I did that day, I did instinctively, intuitively, and I was not going to back down in front of my men. When I turned the handler, once I got the boat off the beach, got it headed back out to sea, I got Seaman Gunner Snow from West Virginia. I turned the wheel over to him, and because I had to find out what was going on in the bilge. And when I opened up that bilge board, when I opened up that board and floor and the deck, and looked down, and everything was wrapped around that bilge from these men. I wasn't going to put my hands down there. I can't do this. I just can't. And I don't know where it come from. It wasn't a big flashing light. I just did it.
We're talking with Earl Norwood. And by the way, just make mention of this, Chevalier in the French Legion of Honor, his service in World War II, United States Navy,
right.
The invasion of Normandy. And you were, which beach did you?
Omaha Beach.
Omaha Beach.
Easy Red.
Wasn't easy.
No.
One of the worst beaches in
That's correct.
Greatest amount of action. United States Navy, and I'm shifting gears back for a moment. United States Navy, most people think that was an all-Army campaign. You're shaking your head. No. The largest at that point, probably still is to this day, the largest military armada ever coalesced. Largest. And it included fishing boats, even small craft.
That's right.
Everything and anything that could float and make it across the channel was engaged in that. United States Navy, a lot of people think it was just an Army campaign. Let's talk about the Navy's role in this.
Well, basically our role was to get the Army over there. And once the battle began, General Bradley, after several weeks, made a remark to the commanding general, the admiral, we couldn't have done it without you. It would have been impossible. And we would have had to land troop ships in the harbors of Cherbourg, Le Havre. We would have been blown to smithereens. If your LCVPs and your LCMs hadn't been there to take that initial group ashore. We assaulted the shore. And 1,038 sailors died the first 5 days of that war, of that battle. It's been overlooked continuously. We read about the 29th Division, the 1st Division, the Big Red One. We don't hear a word about the LCVP people. We don't hear about the LCM people, the LCTs that took these people in there, the LSTs, pardon me. We were the guys who did it. I made 4 trips into the beach that day, and every time I went in, I carried 36 soldiers in. The last 2, I brought 8 back out on stretchers. We were carrying the live in and hauling the wounded and the dead out, or the wounded out. So we were there. The Navy was there. We were the backbone of the whole operation. And I've read various accounts, and the figure goes from 2,500 to 5,000 ships involved in that armada. Now, 5,000, I looked at it very diligently and figured, well, he was counting the PT boats and the sub-chasers and all the small ones. So the documents that I've been able to uncover over the years, there were 2,500 ships, commissioned ships, meaning they were battleships, destroyers, liberty boats, freighters, and etc. But you take 2,500 ships in an area less than 50 miles long and 30 miles wide, and we never had an accident. Nobody hit anybody.
It was a miraculous day, and we're talking with again Earl Norwood, and just to remind folks, they've probably heard his voice and his story, different aspects of his story. We did talk about repeat part of it today, just a moment ago, as part of our War Files program here at the Talk Station. Something that we are honored and privileged to do, and I thank our guest Earl Norwood for taking the time to be with us this afternoon. Earl, before we get into more of the details of what you will be talking about, again, Tuesday, December 6th at the History Place in Morehead City, that's on Arundel Street, if I'm not mistaken, approximately 10th and Arundel Street in Morehead City. This will be an opportunity for folks who are listening to get more in-depth stories and hear more details and actually meet firsthand our guest, Earl Norwood. You not only were there at Omaha at the landing of on D-Day, but you had other experiences. Tell us something about your background in the Navy and where else you went.
Well, basically, I went straight from here into assigned to the small boat operations.
Where are you from originally?
Morehead City.
Morehead City, right.
And my grandfather used to be a lighthouse keeper at Cape Lookout in the early 20s. And then I went to Cape Henry, and from there came back and was a beacon light attender in Bogue Sound clear up until after World War II. So my roots are deep here. But I when they asked for volunteers at boot camp for small boat operations, I jumped on it because I could just see me on a whaler, on one of these whale boats on a battleship or something, carrying the admiral around. What a rude awakening I got. I got to Little Creek, Virginia, and found out what I was going to do. And because of my experience with my grandfather, working with him on his boat, they tested me out. They worked with me, and I was very quickly promoted to coxswain and took charge of one of the small boats and learned to operate it the Navy way. Because if I'd ever grounded my grandfather's boat, he'd have broke my back, I think. And here I am driving the boat up on shore, which was hard to learn to do. I had a hard time learning that. But I did, and it was a secret. A lot of people think you just drove the boat up, unloaded it, and backed off. You don't just do that. You drive the boat up on shore as dry as you can get it. Those troops coming off of there, they're going to have wet feet and so forth. You try to keep them as dry as you can. And in the meantime, you got to make sure that rudder stays dead center, and you're running your engine at 3/4 speed or half speed, because you got to dig a hole behind you in that sand to back the boat out of. So there were the little secrets that the Navy taught us that they had learned over the years working with things. And so once I got it down, that sort of saved my life many times, especially in that battle of Normandy, because I had to go in there. So when you offload, you think the rear end's going to come up. It doesn't. They're not on Higgins because that's where all the fuel tanks and everything else are. So you had to dig that little hole behind you.
Now you tell a story related to the going ashore and dropping the gate. And if I'm not mistaken, a round came right through the bow.
Right through the bow.
All right, so the gate had been dropped.
And just as they hit the ground, just as the gate, or the ramp we called it, and the minute it hit the ground, the sand, the round came through and blew up the first 4 men. The other 32 men stepped over them with no questions, without hesitation. It's one of the greatest feats of heroism I've ever seen.
You know, a lot of people don't appreciate necessarily that they had a mission to do, and though they would want to, out of humanity, stop, they couldn't.
They had to. These men had fought in North Africa together. They were 1st Division, Big Red 1. They had had a comradeship going on for years. Those 4 men that died in the front of that boat, or 3,
were part of their family.
Part of their family, and so, but yet they went.
If the gate had not been down, more damage would have been done.
Oh yes, much more damage would have been done. As soon as the thing about it, and they also part of the other trick that saved our life that day was our training. I didn't have to give Poznansky an order. He was the gate man to bring the gate up. When that last soldier's foot left that gate, he was winding that gate up. It was automatic with him.
All right, Navy, they're at the Normandy, the invasion of Normandy. Mm-hmm. This will be part of your discussion Tuesday evening. What other areas did you serve in through the war?
Through World War II?
Through World War II.
Mostly, once we got a division established, the Army had moved on in. I reverted back to the LST that I had been assigned to with the small boat, and we hauled supplies across the Channel and up the Seine. We got up the Seine as far as Rouen.
Wow.
Yeah, we went all the way up to Rouen and delivering food and so forth. And it was, everybody thinks, well, that was a nice soft job. I'd like to correct them right now. We were hauling 2.5-ton trucks on the upper deck that were loaded with aviation gasoline. And on one of our trips across the Channel, an E-boat slipped into the convoy and got the ship directly behind us. I was on wing watch. It was just one huge ball of fire. All hands lost.
You know, an LST is not an easy boat to steer, because it's flat bottomed.
Flat bottom.
and it for those who've never seen one, just share the fact it's also a hard boat to steer.
Oh, the wind blows it all over the place.
And it doesn't have a deep keel. You're constantly riding the engines to keep it going straight.
Exactly.
I'm a squiddy, so I understand that.
And
this is interesting, and I think this is important because, and I once again remind everyone that our guest Earl Norwood will be live and in person at the History Place in Morehead City Tuesday evening. You're going to hear this story and others. The role of the Navy, and I have to make mention that a lot of people just consider the role being purely Army, and another squiddy who was engaged in the invasion, Dr. Richard Borden.
Yes.
Dick Borden, who was a corpsman. And when I mentioned that to someone, and they said, no, it had to be a medic. I said, no,
he was
a corpsman.
No, sir. I know, Doc. Yeah.
And he, too, has quite a story to tell, and losing a fellow corpsman on the other in a moment. And the experience he had. We interviewed him on that as well. This is an important story, and of course, as we get to, of course, December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, as it's known. Earl, I asked this question earlier, and I continue to ask this question of all World War II veterans. And you went to see a monument there in Normandy.
That's correct.
In 2009, that was established. 2008. And it was established, and very little said about this, but it does, in fact, memorialize the lost sailors.
Right.
And how many sailors were lost in that?
1,038.
1,038.
That's right. Yeah. There's a big monument for the Big Red One. There's a big monument for the 29th. The Army Engineers have got a big monument. And somehow in early 2000, the Navy League realized there was nothing there. So I can't pronounce the name of the French town. It's a small little French town on the coast. They donated the sandhills and the land to the Navy League if they wanted to put their monument on it. and it's beautiful. It's a bronze monument of a Navy captain directing the fire of 2 enlisted men, and you can see what we wore. That was it's really, and for instance, if I had not seen the paragraph in AARP, I would not have known about it. And when I saw it, I was just, wait a minute, I got to go to this. For something inside of me told me I had to go.
There's no question. It was your battle, not only your war, but your battle specifically.
Right.
And it was a memorial to you. Earl Norwood, our guest. And once again, to remind everyone, this coming Tuesday, December 6th, an opportunity to meet and greet Earl Norwood. And once again, to remind everyone, we have done a fabulous interview with you earlier, and I appreciate this. This will be a great opportunity. By the way, am I correct? There's going to be a film that will be shown.
That's correct.
And this is the documentary on the invasion of
Normandy. It shows the 82nd Airborne, 103rd Airborne, and the Navy participation in the invasion.
And I know that attending will be the filmmaker, Richard Lanny.
Yeah.
And I see that also Rodney Kemp will be in attendance as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday evening, starting at 6:30. I think I know where I'm going to be. It's always a pleasure and an honor. And
well, it's just you're giving me an opportunity once again to alert the world to what we did that day. And it all goes back to what I saw, not me, but what I saw on that landing barge that day. When those men did what they did right there in front of me, I can never explain the feeling, but I still well up sometimes when I think about it as I watched them leave that boat into that machine gun fire, the mortar rounds, the artillery, and the rifle fire, and watched them. I didn't have a chance to see too many because I was too busy trying to keep the boat afloat, but I saw several of them drop, and I know why they dropped. I mean, when you've witnessed that type of valor and courage, you have it, you carry it the rest of your life.